El cine de ciencia ficción le debe mucho. Colin Cantwell y su imaginación lograron construir un magnífico concept art, y sus diseños de naves podían hacer realidad las visiones de directores como Stanley Kubrick, Steven Spielberg o George Lucas. Antes de los bocetos que hoy conocemos, un joven director confió en Cantwell para diseñar lo que hoy sería el conjunto de las naves más famosas del universo.
Colin had worked on other movies. 2001 Space Odyssey, did you know that? And he also worked with NASA. So George Lucas, a friend of Colin's, knew George Lucas and introduced Colin to George. And then after George saw some of Colin's work, he decided he wanted to hire him. Colin did the drawings. I mean, he created the ships and did all the concept work, and you can see it over there. And he did the models. But Ralph McGuire took Colin's work and he painted it. So they actually were at the same time. Colin was first, and then Ralph McGuire was after that. This is the first X-Wing drawing. I don't know if you can get it without this. Well, Colin knew about the story, and so while George Lucas was looking for a studio to work in, Colin did all the concept art and came up with the ideas, but nobody told him what to do. He did it himself. It was all out of his own mind. It was all original work. Nobody directed him, or George didn't know he was doing it, so, yeah.
Sin la astucia de Colin, las batallas estelares no serían lo que son ahora, y gracias a sus diseños, hoy se ha construido una serie de películas con millones de fans que no dejan de agradecer por su trabajo.
How do you feel about the fans, Colin? All the fans you have?
I think the fans that I have and have had and have multiplied are what tells me that I'd better be at attention and think about what they are putting in their heads as a part of what will be there from now on.
No existe otra silueta que define Star Wars. A partir de los bocetos de Ralph McQuire, Brian Muir esculpió el traje del villano más icónico del cine. Él es uno de los escultores más importantes de la industria, que con una gran trayectoria logró construir toda una flota imperial de Stormtroopers.
Well, I started on the film at the beginning of 1976, January. The first job that I did was the Stormtrooper armour, and because there were so many, they gave me a plaster figure of a man of 5'10". There are lots of different bits on it, and each piece echoes into the next. And the idea being that if someone at 5'8" wore the suit, the joints would close up, and if someone at 6 foot wore the suit, the joints would get wider. But over 6 foot, they would become too wide, and the suit would look wrong. And under 5'8", they would overlap and would look wrong. So that was my first job on Star Wars, doing the Stormtrooper armour. I mean, they're very different, and I do prefer the original, but they've sort of grown on me. I quite like them, but I still prefer the original Stormtrooper. I did actually work on Rogue One and what's the other one? Can't think of the other film I worked on now. It's the first one Disney made, Force Awakens. So yeah, I worked on that one as well, although I can't talk about the work that I did on the two films because of a contract that big that says I can't talk about it. I did, but I only did the chest armour, the shoulder bells, and the shins from Ralph McQuarrie's concept art. The mask and the helmet I did from a small drawing about so big, from one angle with no sense of shape or form. So I had to make it work 360 degrees so the whole helmet worked and the mask. But George Lucas came up and he liked what he saw, and I think it's been borne out from the fact that Vader's become so iconic.
El trabajo de Muir estaba casi completo. ¿Cómo reaccionaría Lucas al ver toda su flota imperial y sus droides?
Not really. I mean, George Lucas is a very quiet man. He just made it clear that he liked the work that I was doing, and that was about it. He came up to see the Stormtrooper armour and the mask and helmet of Vader. He didn't come up and see the chest armour because, I mean, he was very busy directing and getting other stuff sorted. They started shooting the film in March 1976 out in Tunisia, where the Stormtroopers were sand troopers, which are slightly different, but they're the same suit that I sculpted. But many films I enjoyed working on. Over 70 films I've worked on. I mean, 10 Bond movies, 4 Harry Potter films, all 3 Indiana Jones films, Superman. Recently I've worked on Guardians of the Galaxy, Thor 2, Captain America, Snow White and the Huntsman. Oh, the list goes on, as I say, 70 films. And I've done a lot of work over 48 years in the industry, starting in 1968 at Elstree Film Studios.
Pasamos al siguiente episodio, The Empire Strikes Back, donde tenemos una de las escenas más icónicas de la película, Darth Vader con los cazarrecompensas, y también podemos ver por primera vez al legendario Boba Fett. Pudimos platicar con los intérpretes de 3 de estos icónicos personajes. ¿Qué opinan cuando ven la escena?
I always get a bit of an exciting thrill when I see it because it's quite a poignant scene where you have Darth Vader and all the bounty hunters suddenly appear. So it's quite a unique scene and it always gives me a thrill when I see it, you know. So it's a wonderful, wonderful thing to be able to look at.
Did you see episode 4 before you work in Star Wars?
No, I didn't. No, I did afterwards, yes.
How is this relation with the fans in all the world?
I was only a very small part of Star Wars, and I just think I feel quite humbled to be invited to conventions and to meet the fans, and they just want to know about the costumes, what it was like to work on the set, about the different actors that I met and worked with, and it's just lovely that I can bring back all the memories and relive them really and talk to the fans about it. So it's wonderful, and also my colleagues, that I get to work with, lovely Bill and Chris, and unfortunately Alan's not here today, but we normally are all together, so it's wonderful, really a wonderful thing. The costume itself wasn't really heavy, but the headdress was. So you have to imagine it's like a diver's outfit. So it was actually locked onto my head. I couldn't take it off on my own. That's why you see this picture here. That's me sitting on the set. That's me sitting on the spaceship, the Falcon.
Can you see with the...
Not much, no, not much at all, no. Very little. I could see ahead, but I couldn't see down or to the side of me. So I was helped on the platform. I had somebody help me and then get me down, and then I'd sit down and then I'd go up again. So quite restrictive, yeah.
And finally, do you have a memory or something like the pros or with your partners?
One of my very fond memories was with Dave Prowse, funny you say. We used to have lunch together, and at that time he was also doing the Green Cross Code, which was all about road safety. So he dressed up in this character before he did Star Wars, and he was trying to educate children about road safety. So he'd tell me he was so excited about all the work that he'd done and how many lives he'd saved. So we used to have really good chats, and I've got lovely memories of having lunch with him in the canteen at the studio, yeah.
And Irving Kershner, the director.
Quite serious, concentrating all the time. So you had to be very alert, you had to make sure you were on the right mark, and you had to be very professional because he was an extremely professional director, but lovely, very, very lovely man.
Y Forlom, uno de los cazarrecompensas más temidos.
Your favorite bounty hunter from Star Wars?
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm going to say Forlom, aren't I? Because it's my character. I mean, I do like Boba Fett, and maybe in a different scenario, I could have played that myself. It's just the luck of the draw. But Forlom's been very good to me, so I'm quite happy with Forlom. I got the job from my audition to double for C-3PO, so obviously that was a nice touch. And I enjoyed playing the parts of 3PO, and from that it led to all the other characters. So I played 10 characters in all, and obviously one of those was Forlom. And as I said earlier on, Forlom's been good to me. That's the one that the fans seem to like. So I'm quite happy with all of that. Well, Forlom's suit is basically the same as 3PO with a different head, and the breastplate is basically the same with a slightly different moulding on it. But it is essentially basically the same suit, yes. It was fairly heavy, but the most problem with it was uncomfortable. A lot of the arms were made out of metal, and so on the arms especially, if you brought your arms up very quickly, with the pistons on the joints, you would pinch your skin. And so you end up with all these big bruises after a day's work. So you had to try and keep the arms, stop them slipping down, and then that way you could deal with it. So it was more uncomfortable than heavy.
How was your relation with Mr. Anthony Daniels, the original C-3PO?
Well, Anthony at the time when we were filming all of the films was perfect. I mean, we shared a dressing room on the set of Elstree, and it was called Rose Cottage. And Anthony had one half, and I had the other, and we had the same dressers. So the people that would dress him as 3PO would also dress me in my other character as K3PO. So we got on very well at the time.
Pero Bill también opina que el mejor cazarrecompensas es IG-88, que pronto aparecerá en The Mandalorian.
The best bounty hunter in the whole of Star Wars is IG-88.
That's correct. And what do you think about The Mandalorian?
When people copy you, that's the greatest thing they can do. It's such an honour that they're doing it, that they're showing it. It's such a strong character, so it's lovely that they're doing it. I look forward to seeing it myself.
Is he paying attention?
No, it was just a stand-in prop, just to stand there and look really daunting. But when they got it onto the set, it was so big, they had to bring it down lower, otherwise the camera couldn't see it. You would understand with your camera operator. If you're too tall, you look off the set. You can't. So they had to make him smaller. He was very big, 2.3 meters. Big robot.
Wow.
My process is very easy. You have to be mucho loco. Then it's easy. Yeah, everything was just new. So you had a plain piece of paper. You could just do what you wanted and make it real. And I think it worked. I did the Beaumont Monk, EV-99, 8D8, a lot of the droids. So it worked, I think. My droids were always dirty, used, like the old gunslingers from the Western days. Yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot to do with the directors. But the best thing is, if you put something onto a film set and people accept it, then it's right.
Yeah.
So everything I made, the directors came on and went, oh, that's good. They just accepted it, so that's a great compliment that they didn't want to change anything. So my relationship was wonderful, but I didn't speak to them a lot. I was talking yesterday, they said, if you built a Mexican droid, what would you call it? I said I'd call it Az-2, as the Aztecs and, number 2, because IG-8 is number 1, so Az-2. So yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to be involved, but I'm too old. It's a different industry, so you have to let the young people do. And there will be another Bill Hargreaves making props, so it's good. Yeah.
Y no podríamos terminar esta trilogía sin el doble de riesgo de uno de los personajes más amados, Boba Fett, quien ya sabemos cómo murió, pero el encargado de filmar esas escenas fue Dickey Beer, un experimentado stuntman, un difícil trabajo en la industria.
Gamorrean God was the most difficult one because it was a real big suit, extended arms, and the head was like really heavy and big, fat. So the head had to come off every 2 minutes because you had to breathe.
Did you sweat the...
Oh yeah, it was smelly in there. Yeah. That will take an hour to more to tell you all the memories. So no, only good memories. So,
Only good memories.
Yes.
With Richard McQuan, the director, it was a nice guy or something.
Richard
like
McQuan was okay, a great guy, but George Lucas was with him all the time, so they were always together, those two.
He's always angry.
No. Oh, no. Like George is a very shy, stand-backish kind of a guy. He doesn't say much, but when he says something, then you know you better listen. Yeah.
And did you see the other films from Star Wars before you worked in this one?
No. I never saw the movie.
No?
No.
Wow. Okay.
No.
Bueno,
The reason is when you watch a movie, you're watching a story being told. When I watch a movie, I watch a movie being made, and that's not fun.
Y bueno, cineastas y cinéfilos, esta fue la conclusión de estas entrevistas de aquellos creadores y cast de la película más importante de ciencia ficción que jamás se haya hecho. No olviden suscribirse a nuestro canal y picarle la campanita para más contenido como este. Acompáñenos en nuestros recorridos de The Force Con y en muchos más lugares que próximamente estaremos presentes. Esto es Cinema 1080 desde The Force Con. Se graba toma y que la fuerza del cine nos acompañe. Adiós.